Mataji, please.
Yes. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, everyone. Thank you, Prabhu, for such a generous introduction. Uh, I know all of you who are there coming for this seminar are very, very sincere and have the best interests of the children at heart. So I feel very fortunate to be amongst you, all of you, sincere devotees. And even if, and your interest in homeschooling is actually very laudable because it was very dear to Srila Prabhupada's heart. Prabhupada, among the things that he stressed in his life, we all know that it was book distribution, but besides book distribution, two other things. One was deity worship and also Gurukula. That was very, very close to his heart because he knew that these children were going to be the future of ISKCON. He said, if you make these children good Vaishnavas, that will be the glory of your movement, but also of the country as well. But if you lose even one Vaishnav, he said, that would be a very great loss. And why was Prabhupada so keen on this? Is because he wanted the children to develop good character. That was number one in his mind, because he knew that with they could make a real impact in the world just by being perfect gentlemen, just by giving such a good example. And Gurukula provides that kind of training. So what if we don't have a Gurukula, or what if we don't want to send them into a Gurukula? Then homeschooling becomes a very good option, because all those principles that Prabhupada wanted our children to learn in school can be applied in our homeschooling. So we will talk about the benefits of homeschooling very quickly, very soon, and so we will move to our subject matter now. Okay, next slide. So this is a wonderful quote by Srila Prabhupada that I really, really like. If we train children by developing and encouraging their propensity to love Krishna, then we shall be successful in educating them to the topmost standard. Then they shall happily agree to whatever you ask them. If you note this quote, Prabhupada is saying that how if we develop the propensity to love Krishna amongst these children, that is the topmost education. When I first thought about their schooling, wondering which way should I go, I was thinking that Krishna consciousness is something that I have to teach them and train them, but something like education has to be different, separate from that. In other words, the children need to be educated and at the same time be Krishna conscious. But actually, what Prabhupada is saying, Krishna conscious education is education. It is the topmost education, and they are one. So then if we give them this education, in Krishna conscious education, then these children there will be no discipline problems. And they will actually be very ideal children who will make you proud, and they will make Prabhupada proud. And they will be very valuable members of ISKCON. Okay, next one. So a little bit about my journey, how I opted to homeschool. Actually, I didn't know anything about homeschooling, so I was thinking of different options in terms of, which school should I send, a private school or a public school. And then I found a private school that I thought would be good. And my experience was, I would volunteer time over there and just to see how things were going. And many different ways I was quite disappointed. And because this seminar is going to be quite short, I don't want to go into the details, but you can pretty much guess what disappointed me. It was the value system, right? The value system. Even in a private school, a private school is not a magic formula for good behavior or good character, developing good character or good teachers. That's what I found out, because people are still people, whether you have a very expensive private school or public school. Maybe fewer children, may have lesser children and may have problems, really extreme problems. but yet the problems are still there. Because what is important is the quality of the teachers, who's imparting the education. That's very important. Prabhupada, at one time, he said that actually a teacher cannot be teacher if he smokes and drinks. Why? Because those very characteristics that a teacher has, which is basically breaking, for most of them, breaking all the 4 regulative principles, well, such a teacher will have an impact on the students that she's teaching to, because the character will rub on the children. Especially the children, they spend so much time, the best 8 hours in an environment like that. I remember when my children, I put them in a Seventh-day Adventist school, because I thought, well, this is a denomination where they believe that they're vegetarians. There are many who don't follow that, but they are supposed to be vegetarians. And also, so that way they are, they have some good qualities, right? They don't believe in meat eating. But when I went there, I was actually very disappointed, because the problems were still there. I remember one day, my younger one came and said that the teacher was so upset that she practically spent the whole day talking about good discipline. Why? Because a few children were so misbehaved. And another time, my son saw, there was his teacher, she was in school, in the classroom, and her boyfriend came, and they were both casually kissing each other. So, and he came and narrated that, and of course there was also some discrimination against his shikha and things like that. So so even if so it's very difficult in a scenario like that to teach them good character. So Prabhupada said a teacher should be a devotee, at least should be favorable to these principles. So at that point, I withdrew them from school. I was already looking for options, and I found homeschooling as one of the options. It was actually quite new in ISKCON and also around America. But there were people who were doing it, and the government was quite okay with that. So I thought, why not? Let me try. So it was summertime, so I ordered a curriculum, and during those 3 months, I wanted to teach them and see how it goes. And if it did work, I would send them back to school. So this was a very safe plan. And to my surprise, what I saw was that within 3 months, they had actually done the whole year's curriculum. Of course, the curriculum for the kindergarten and first grade was quite, it was quite simple, but yet the amazing thing was that it wasn't difficult to cover the curriculum in 3 months. And they weren't studying all day, they were just doing work for 2 hours a day. So I thought that, well, this is not very difficult. And when you buy a curriculum, you are also stuck with that book that they give for that grade. Of course, now you can buy them individually, like you can buy different grade level math, and you can buy different grade level English, and this way you can mix and match, right? So I wanted to try my own homeschooling, because they do give that option that actually you can make your own curriculum. And at that time, I was quite a new devotee, and I was very inspired by Srila Prabhupada's writings and instructions, even though I had not read his books. And so I thought, well, and I was really eager to read them myself. So I thought, I'm going to teach them through Srimad Bhagavatam. And I made my own curriculum based on Prabhupada's books. And I was noticing that after some time, a month or 2 months, they seemed to be doing quite well, both academically and spiritually. Their motivation was very, very high. They were very motivated to do things, whether it was their Srimad Bhagavatam, or whether it was doing things around the center, the temple. They were always motivated. And I also noticed that they had fewer discipline problems. So I was very, very satisfied. And, I had moments of doubts and nervousness. And I really actually didn't know what I was doing, frankly, because it was so new. I had no devotees to actually consult. But there was something, they have this in Boise, they have this Iowa basic skills exam. Every state has them. And you can go once a year and you can check out how they're doing. So I would go once a year. That was generally in March. And then if whatever the results would be, I would know, okay, I'm doing a fairly decent job. So they were always in the 90th tile or 95th percentile, which is very, very high. And I knew that would be my yardstick. And my husband was also very nervous whether this was going to work. So we were always then assured that no, this is working. And most of all, I was enjoying this very much because, they're so rewarding to see your children progress, isn't it? For a person, for a mother and father who are devotees, naturally they want to give the same values to our children, right? This is our innermost desire for them to become devotees, but also we want them to be academically qualified. If we can do both, then we feel very happy and satisfied. Now, homeschooling is so popular now that there is I think, I'm not sure, but there are million people in America who are homeschooling. That's a lot of people. And most of these people are coming from Christian families who really care about the values that their children are adopting. And of course, women who can stay at home and not have to work and who are very religious. So the children, if you have a support group in your area and you took the children there for some extracurricular activities, you will see the difference in the children overall. Even families who are not devotees, there is a difference. The children are more well-behaved, they have better values, and there is less, less problems. So it has an effect. Even among non-devotees, they generate very good children compared to children who are going to school. For example, many Stanford and MIT, they actually prefer children who are homeschooled. That's what I heard. Because they know these children will be very motivated and they will be academically very way ahead of other children. And they will also have study skills that are very, they will also have study skills that will be very independent. Like they are not spoon-fed. Because in home, you cannot really spoon-feed the children. They develop their own skills, study skills, to study on their own, because that's how homeschooling works. The parent can be doing things at home, in the kitchen, and the child would be sitting on the dining table, working on math problems or any problems that you give. It just works so well with this, in that way, in that structure. Okay, next one, Prabhu. Yeah, so these are some of the things that I found lacking in school, academically slow, and I can give you examples of things that were happening in school that I clearly found they were academic. See, the schools are made for the average. If you're above average, you're bored. And if you're below average, you're not challenged. This meant, after all, the teacher with 30 kids, what can she do? How can she cater to every one of them? But in homeschooling, you can go at your own pace, isn't it? You can just go on your own pace. Because if the child is especially gifted in some area, math, then she or he can go faster. If they're gifted in humanities, she or he can go faster. Or even in music, because there's so much time. There's so much time. The problem in schools is they spend so much time with just managing, with the structure and trying to fit in everybody, the logistics of it, that they have no way that they cannot cater to individual progress, But in homeschooling, that freedom is there. Of course, I already talked about lacking values. Definitely, that's a big issue, and it was a very big issue with Prabhupada in terms of wanting children to go to Gurukula, so that they can learn these values. He would say that with all these degrees, PhDs and everything, what good is that? It's like a decoration on a dead body, right? You have all these degrees, but no character, no character. What good are those degrees? And of course, bad examples. Now, one other thing nice about the schooling is that they have, they have good examples, because we are devotees. When they meet other senior devotees, they're also wonderful devotees. They have examples of sannyasis, gurus. So all that has a great effect. And what to speak of the Srila Prabhupada's books? When they are in touch with these great personalities in Srimad Bhagavatam, their character rubs on them. Okay, go next one. So, and one other thing that I may not have covered in this list is that they avoid negative association in schools and bad role models. Definitely, we have that problem in school. As you know, as we're getting more and more into Kali Yuga, there are more and more problems, right? It used to be 20 years ago, it used to be the biggest problem they said in school used to be chewing gum. Children would chew gum and stick it under the desk. It was a big problem. Now, 20 years later, definitely that's a small problem nobody talks about, right? Now the problem is drugs and violence, guns. So you can see that, it's getting worse and worse. So because we can say, well, I went to school too, so why should I not send my children to school? Well, the point is that it was very different 20, 30, 40 years ago. It was very different. Things have really degraded. And what the influence that one gets now, is much, much more worse than what it was like when we went to school. So we have to remember that things, as time goes on, things are getting more and more degraded. What to speak about the problems now with COVID, everybody, so many people are scared of sending their children. It's such a big issue now in terms of infection and all those things. There have been now, COVID is affecting young people, right? Well, one may say that this is just a temporary problem. Well, it's always some problem or the other. Before COVID, what was the problem? Shooting was a huge problem in schools. It was so bad, right? It was happening so frequently, and teachers were being pressured to use guns, to keep guns. Of course, it makes children strong devotees, no doubt about that, because there's so much time to spend in their spiritual growth. Right? So much time to spend in the spiritual growth. I remember that the first thing that we did after the morning breakfast, we would read Srimad Bhagavatam. After the morning program and the morning breakfast, we would sit down with Srimad Bhagavatam, and that basis, for me at least, it became the basis, because they would, read, and I will talk more about that later. But so much time was spent in Shastra, and then, of course, we would go and try to apply those teachings in a practical way by doing programs. So we do the theory, but then we try to put it into practice by reaching out to other people. Those and preaching, in preaching activities, or things in the temple that needed to be done, which is also a type of preaching, right? Organizing festivals, Harinam, book distribution. So all these things, so many wonderful things are there for the whole day. And these activities that Prabhupada gave us, they are so powerful. They're so powerful that actually it can train the children in every facet of life. Even maturely, what to speak of spiritually. We have no doubt what it does spiritually, but even materially speaking, academically, but also materially speaking, they become very qualified in all the things that you're hoping your children will have. What is big book distribution? You go out and you attract somebody with these books. You have to convince somebody through persuasion, through good logic. You have to use all your talents in making it successful. So what technique is that? It's a marketing technique. Book distributors make great marketing experts all their life, right? Anything that you think about, when we talk about festivals and dramas, the leadership that children get in playing roles, where do they get? Do you know a child in school can go through life without ever doing much of drama and doing much of inculcating much of leadership qualities? Do you know the social skills that I'm going to talk about later? Social skills that are, there's such a big concern among devotees in terms and their discouragement for homeschooling, because they feel like children will be isolated. Where is the social skills? Where are they going to learn that if they don't go to school? Well, all these activities put us in touch with other people, and they also give us great social skills. Drama. How many festivals do we have? It's always practically every month we have a festival. But the child who grows up participating in these dramas has to develop wonderful skills of presentation, articulation, what to speak of preaching. When they're distributing books, they are giving a class. So more about that later. But just to give you a little, inspiration that in every facet, the child is not lacking in homeschooling. Inculcates values and develops character, very, very important, very dear to Srila Prabhupada. And learn more in a shorter time. We absolutely cannot have a doubt about that. And Prabhupada wanted the children to go to Gurukula. Okay, Prabhu, next one. So this is our next section of our seminar today. It's called Purity is the Force. So this is so ISKCON ISKCON has a motto, right? Purity is the force, books are the basis, and preaching is the essence, and utility is the principle. So this is the first motto. So our whole our Krishna consciousness depends on purity. Right? Next one. So what does purity means? Means certain do's and don'ts. In other words, we try to raise our children in an environment that's conducive to Krishna consciousness. So that's number one. Everything begins at home, isn't it? Charity begins at home. So this is where children develop the character with the association with their parents. That has such an effect. In Gurukula, they found out that children who were in touch with their parents, they did a lot better. They had fewer problems in Gurukula than children who got totally disconnected with their parents. They did a study that what went wrong in some Gurukulas. What went wrong? It's the connection with the parents, because it's so strong and it's so deep. So when we are giving that example, and we're not perfect, I was far from perfect. I was a fairly new devotee and I was struggling. My spiritual growth was very little, and it was growing as time went along. So therefore, the parents have a great impact on the children's character, on the children's purity, and on the children's behavior, and who they're going to be in future. Very important. So first we'll talk about the don'ts, the avoiding television and limiting internet. And all of you are very familiar with this, that TV destroys, there's two problems with television. One is the content and one is the medium. Nobody probably has any doubt about the content, right? We know that television disrupts, breaks all the four regulative principles that we are supposed to follow as devotees, right? Illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, and meat eating, because it's all about that. So many principles are being broken. All these principles are being broken. So that's the content. So in other words, it's like lighting a fire and pouring water on it at the same time. So when we allow our children to watch television, we are trying to make them devotees, but we are also stopping their progress. We're also ruining their progress. Why? Because the medium, coming to the medium, is so powerful. TV as a medium, and you've noticed that, right? You give a cell phone to a child, he can get his eyes off it. It's so powerful, these digital things, right? They're so powerful. It completely traps the attention of the child because it's presented in such a vivid way, right? Any show. And what happens is it's very addictive. It's very addictive. So it becomes very addictive. Now, in terms of medium, the problem with the television as a medium is that it stops creativity. It destroys creativity and good thinking because it gives everything to you, right? It's like on a platter. It just gives it to you. It's a one-way download from the screen to the brain. And they've done studies that actually there's no activity. The brain activity during the time that we are watching television is zero. So you can imagine a whole lifetime of watching television, what it does to the mind and the brain, what it does to the mind. It just becomes like mush, right? And they've done studies that children who watch television, their reading skills are very poor, their math skills are very poor. So that's for medium. And also, it's just, it's the type, the way it's given to us, it's not interactive. That's the main thing. For example, if you hear something on radio, at least you still have to visualize it, right? Put a picture in your mind that this is how it must be looking. Maybe it's a suspense. Somebody's the police is chasing a robber or something. Well, you can imagine, oh, this must be happening, right? So your imaginative power is being used, your creative power is being used. And in reading a book, even that medium is not there. So one has to really not only decode the words, but one has to use their creativity to put a picture in their mind. So the medium has big problems, right? And the problem that people argue with is that, well, the whole world, all the children are watching. How can they not watch? Will they become social misfits? Well, one does not fit into every social group. Even if you were not a devotee, which child fits in every group? They always have their own group that they fit in better than the others, right? So in fact, a devotee is very confident. We never have to worry about devotee being ignorant, because the philosophy in our Krishna consciousness is so deep that even if we don't know about something, maybe we don't watch a very popular serial, but if somebody told us anything about some popular news, we can always give a Krishna conscious perspective on it and appear very, very intelligent. And if one is lacking news, then one can read the newspaper. It's better than watching television. At least the headlines, and the rest is too much detail for those who have nothing better to do, right? It's not true that they become social misfits because of the Krishna conscious perspective that one can give. Of course, video games are very, very addictive, and they destroy all the finer things in Krishna consciousness. We just become addicted to the video games. We can develop problems of violence, just by watching them. We become actually very cold and very hard by watching video games. I know children who have watched video games and they exhibit the same violence in their own life. Okay, next one. Okay, well, I didn't talk much about the internet. Now, television is actually become a little obsolete, right? Now the bigger problem is internet. And we tend to think that the internet is a safer way to go, but it's not. Right? We know that most of the internet, maybe 70% is all, junk, pornography. And if a child has spends a lot of time on the internet, chances are that he's going to run into sites like that. It's very, very difficult. In television, you can lock up some channels so the child doesn't go, but in internet, there's no way to do that. And if the child spends enough browsing through the internet, then he or she will be very soon in sexual association. Right? The other problem with that is the source of the internet. If you see, the internet is very flickering, right? Ephemeral. One website is here today, and then suddenly it disappears. Nothing is stable. You put up any website, and you can find people who are willing people who are willing to hear from you, right? Anything you put, whether it's junk. You may not be a qualified doctor, but you may be professing medical advice, and the people are sucked into it, right? Even religion, pseudo-religionists, they have big say on the internet. So we have to be careful about the internet. So how do we use the internet? It's a very important tool. I mean, nowadays in schools and everywhere, even in homeschooling, one needs to, get into material, statistics and things like that, where one needs to use internet. So internet should be used only as a tool. In other words, just like we have a hammer, we use the hammer for a specific purpose. We don't carry the hammer around and have a relationship with the hammer. Right? So we use it like a tool. And when we are done, we log off. That's the main thing. We log off. So, so this is an intelligent way of using it, rather than, and parents can show a good example in that. Not that we have it always on the on mode, or we have the television on the always on mode. It's very, very distracting. And one needs to substitute that with healthy, healthy hobbies or things that we can do for Krishna. So now we will go into the things that we should do, and I'll go really quickly through that. I won't take too much time because I don't want to make my presentation too long. I'm eager to hear from all of you, your questions. So morning program is very, very important. Among Prabhupada, actually, he wanted the children to be quite free to play around, to eat whatever they wanted, to spend a lot of time playing. But of course, playing Krishna conscious games, that was very important for Prabhupada. He stressed that a lot in many, many quotations, because when we associate with Krishna, even in our playing habits, then Krishna becomes real. Krishna is absolute. So in any way, if you associate with Krishna, it goes deep into the heart, and we become more and more Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada wanted them to eat as much as they wanted, play, But one thing he always was stressing on is that children should have a morning program. And of course, in Gurukula, the children would get up very early, and they would go for the morning. You may have seen that in Vrindavan. Okay. Now in homeschooling, that may not be possible, because life is different. There's a father, there's a mother, and maybe a grandmother, and life is different. The father is coming home late at night, and he wants to connect with the children, or maybe at least by 6 or 7 o'clock, So and there's festivals and there's so many struggles. So it may not happen at 3:30 in the morning, right? But whatever you can manage, a nice schedule, even when the schedule breaks once in a while, that's okay. That's practical. But the point is that one should maintain a morning program at a time that's most feasible for everyone, where the children get enough rest, and that is important. That they don't wake up cranky. They wake up with happy, right? So that's, the day must start with the morning program. Of course, if you're homeschooling, that's not a problem, right? Of course, and if they are going to school, that will be a challenge. So then we can have to adjust and make it more flexible, make it very, very short maybe, but still we should not skip the morning program. And we can make it very flexible. Little children don't have so much patience, so we make it shorter. For older children, a little longer. But somehow it's so miraculous what a morning program does. It just has such a miraculous effect on the mind of anyone. I don't know if you've been to a temple for a morning program. It's amazing what it does to the psyche, right? It makes one more peaceful. What to speak about the children? The children become so peaceful. And most of the behavior problems goes away right by doing a morning program, right? It's very amazing. And of course, japa, a lot of questions I get on japa. Japa should be introduced. Prabhupada's quotations are there. Prabhupada wanted children to do japa, even as little as 4 years old. In Gurukula, he was encouraging them. Of course, they have to be taught how to respect the beads. And, they may chant initially 1 round or half a round, and gradually we can keep encouraging them. So, but we should not force them to. We should not use japa as a punishment or as a reward. We shouldn't tell the child that if you don't do japa, you'll have to chant 2 rounds. You'd have to stay at home and you cannot go out or something, And we cannot say, if you do japa today, I'll give you an ice cream. Either way, it should not be used in that way, as a punishment or reward. Japa is our time with Krishna. And the best way to do japa is to chant with them, because then they're encouraged. So if they're chanting 1 round, do it with them. A lot of you have to chant 16 rounds. So there's no problem in doing a couple rounds with them. In this way, they don't develop bad habits and they're always inspired. Oh, next one. So I've already covered the japa. Prasadam, very briefly, we all understand the importance of prasadam. It's amazing what prasadam does to the hearts of the people. And we've had experience with adults, right? Somebody who's very inimical to Krishna consciousness, you give them prasad, and suddenly nothing was working, no philosophy was working, but then it works. After food, after prasadam, they suddenly start getting more positive, more open to Krishna consciousness. Right? So it's just miraculous how prasadam works. Why? Because it affects the consciousness. We are what we eat. Immediately food affects our consciousness. Just like an artist painting, right? When you see a painting by an artist, whatever he's drawn immediately has an effect. If it's all modern art and gruesome and bold, heavy colors, immediately our mind becomes agitated, right? So prasadam acts in the same way. It's an important activity, especially for children who especially little children, they need so much variety. And as they get older, they don't need so much because other interests take over. So cooking, prasad for children is very, very rewarding, because as they become satisfied, they hanker less for food that is not offered. And I've seen that again and again. The better prasad we give them, to our best ability, of course, whatever is practical, the less they hanker for non-devotee food, right? And of course, there's ways to deal how to go to parties if they are, thrown by children who are not devotees. I was always, I would take food with me. I would explain to the host, what our dietary requirements were, and things like that. Because, and if you are open and direct right from the beginning, but very nice, then they actually appreciate it very much, right? They appreciate it. So, because then they respect you for that, right? They understand there's not just that we are vegetarians, but we also don't eat food that's cooked in a kitchen that cooks meat. Very simple. It's not just we are vegetarians. but we don't eat food in a kitchen that cooks meat. Because they have even Jewish people have their kosher rule, right? So if we see that, and if we emphasize that right from the beginning, they actually respect you for that. But if we change our principles, one day we eat, but one day we don't eat, or this is harder, this now is not so hard, then you become the butt of jokes, right? People actually laugh. They think, well, look at him. In America, especially, we went through life. My husband was working for Hewlett Packard, and always these problems were there. And then my sons, went out into the world. They also, they went to, to England to study. They always continuously a devotee has to face these problems, right? So by teaching them through Srila Prabhupada's books, how the theory and the practice both has to be there, right? The intelligence has to be also, fed. And that comes through Srila Prabhupada's books. That emphasis comes through the philosophy. Because otherwise, then children think, oh, this is my tradition only. But then there are so many children who are also Indians and who don't follow that. So why should I go after this tradition? So it's not just about tradition. It is about, why. It's about deep thinking and logical reasoning. Why we don't kill cows? Why we don't kill any animal? So all this should be emphasized, and we try to do our best in that area with full faith. Okay, next one, Prabhu. Deity worship, very briefly, is very important because children who have a relationship with children who have a relationship with Krishna in the form of deities, they become very personal. They see Krishna as a person right from day one. The problem that a lot of us had a problem growing, because we may not, for those of us who had nothing to do with deities growing up, when we came into ISKCON, then it was not easy to develop a relationship with deities or to see Krishna as a person. And so we became very impersonal. And to go back to a personal relationship is so much harder, right? But if this is inculcated from day one, then children grow up effortlessly seeing Krishna as a person. For example, if he comes in front of the altar, he's thinking, oh, is Krishna happy today? Or is he sad? Maybe Krishna is hot today. I should turn on the fan. Right? Seeing the mother or father offering the food and helping in that process all day, and also, makes him develop that personal attitude. Just like a child will play with dolls. He will never think a doll is just a little toy. He'll think a doll is a person, right? So the same way, when they get in touch with deity worship in some form or the other, they start having a personal relationship with Krishna. And this becomes the foundation of all religion, foundation religion. Now, this is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur said in one of his quotes in Jaiva Dharma, that religions that have no deities, children who grow up in that religion, they become materialistic because there's nothing to focus on. So this is a very scientific thing and very important, and we can start that as early as we can, while also training them how to treat the deities, how to worship them, helping them in that process. Also establishing, restrictions and borders that they need to wash, for example, washing hands, and things like that. And they learn so many wonderful qualities, right? Okay, next one, please. So we are going to the next section, which is called Books are the Basis. This is the academic curriculum for our children. This is the part where we can develop their intelligence and their ability to think and to critically think. Okay. So this is a wonderful quote by Srila Prabhupada, and in these quotes, he's emphasized the study of Srimad Bhagavatam, and there's many more quotes So you can imagine how important it was for Srila Prabhupada, how dear it was for him that children read his books, especially Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll read these quotes. Our students specifically, they should take care of reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We have therefore prescribed in our school Dallas, and from the very beginning, if they begin education with Bhagavad Gita and then come to Srimad Bhagavatam and read the whole literature, then they will be more than MA, PhD. Even astronomy, astrology, politics, sociology, atomic theory, everything is there. Therefore, if you study Srimad Bhagavatam very carefully, then you get all knowledge completely. Throughout the whole world, whatever knowledge is there is in the Srimad Bhagavatam. If one simply reads the Srimad Bhagavatam, his education is the topmost. If one studies Srimad Bhagavatam, he is well versed in every subject matter. So much confidence has. Now, whatever Prabhupada says, we cannot think that it is hyperbole, is exaggerated. No, it is true. It is as it is. We have to have that faith. When Prabhupada is saying that Srimad Bhagavatam has everything, it has everything. It was my own experience, and I was so surprised. This is not what I understood when I first started out. I didn't know the results, but as the results came in, I developed great faith in what Prabhupada is saying here. I taught my children through Srimad Bhagavatam, which was the basis for all humanities, and some math, which became the basis for all science subjects. So English is the basis for all humanities, and math is the basis for all science subjects. And English, I was teaching them through Srimad Bhagavatam. And within a span of like 6 years, they had mastered this language. Like Prabhupada is saying, they become more than MA, PhD. So that when it just so happened, just accidentally it happened that they went to college, at the age of 12 and 13. And it happened because we were running the restaurant, and there was this teacher who came from the university and who noticed how well the children were speaking, their vocabulary and their understanding. And he suggested that I give them a class, enroll them in the university with maybe one class in English or something. He was a chairman of the English department. He was actually an Indian gentleman, and he knew us well. He would come to eat at the restaurant. And I was shocked. I said, really? That early? I didn't even know there was anything like that, that the children could actually take classes like that. Of course, there is a provision there where children can, through the dual enrollment system, they can actually enroll in the class from high school. So anyway, based on his suggestion, I went to the dean and asked about, whether they could do that. Now, my older one, who went first, he was older by 2 years. And so he had some, articles in Back to Godhead, of course, but also I had him take a placement exam and in English. And due to the Bhagavatam, he scored in his 90s. Okay, he scored in his 90s. So the dean was actually quite impressed with that. And he said, okay, well, if the class teacher agrees in taking such a young boy, then it's okay with me. So we went looking for a class teacher, and lo and behold, every class was full. So this teacher, this chairman of the English department, Dr. Sani, he suggested that why don't you enroll him in this honors class? And I was thinking, wow, this honors class, that could be very hard. And the first year honors class was also full. He said, no, you enroll him in the second year. And that really made me nervous. Of course, based on his judgment, I went, and she agreed. So what were they reading over there? Books like Shakespeare, and other Mexican writers, American writers, the Odyssey and Shakespeare's, I think, Hamlet or something. I'm not quite sure. So in this way, he was reading Shakespeare for the first time. So, but you can understand why Srimad Bhagavatam was working for those books as well. Because books of Shakespeare goes into many topics which are very deep, and they help. And knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam also is a study which goes very, very deep. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So he did actually very well. So in this way, when I saw the results, I thought, well, this is good. And so I had them take only just one class at a time per semester. So they got eased into it and they enjoyed that class. And I was really surprised how this all happened. Okay, next one, bro. Of course, this is not what I recommend for everyone, is that the children should be sent to college early. This, for me, it happened accidentally. But I know many children in ISKCON who have gone to college early just because they're so sharp. They've been homeschooled, they've been reading Srimad Bhagavatam from day one, and their language skills are. And we'll talk a little bit more about those things in a little bit. And of course, the spiritual benefits, I've talked already quite a bit. The association with great personalities, very, very powerful. They actually imbibe these character of these personalities in their heart. And we can understand that through association. Association with pure souls is so powerful, even a moment's association. Just like Prahlad, he was in association even with the womb with Narad Muni. And look at what happened. Right? Okay, Prabhu, next one. So these are the academic benefits. So we know that the real purpose of reading Srimad Bhagavatam is to go back to Godhead, right? But there are many, many byproducts as well. And academic benefits are some of the byproducts. As you know, it creates really strong reasoning abilities and critical thinking skills in when we study Srimad Bhagavatam with the children. Why? Because these stories are not ordinary stories. They go very, very deep. They go very deep. For example, the story of Parikshit Maharaj is not about a king who left home and he was cursed. There's nuances to it where Parikshit Maharaj is thinking, how to, where he's not reversing the curse. He's making decisions to actually take the curse. See it as a plan of Krishna. Go to the bank of the Ganges and fast for 7 days. There's reasons why Shamak Rishi is behaving the way he behaved. There's reasons why the little boy, Shringi, is behaving and the repercussions of that. There's so many different angles where we can see. And then later on, we see Parikshit Maharaj. Earlier, we saw him as such a powerful king, how he dealt with Kali, and how he also had qualities such as compassion. Now we have things like analogies and metaphors in Srimad Bhagavatam, right? We know that. How these spiritual concepts just so difficult for people like us who are materially conditioned, how they can be explained through metaphors are. It helps us, it gives us the ability to understand deep concepts through material examples. And these analogies are set in such a way where it helps with strong reasoning and abilities, and also through abstract thinking. For example, I remember I read about a reporter who came to see Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada was so keen on teaching him, on explaining to him the difference between the body and soul, that he took the analogy of the car and the driver to such great length. And he did not give up till the reporter understood the difference between the body and soul. It was amazing how deep one can go, and the reporter eventually left satisfied. So in this way, these metaphors and metaphors are the similarities, but with a more descriptive flavor. In this way, the children can study all these things, which are practically very, very impossible in school. Children do study, do develop some skills, but not to the extent that Srimad Bhagavatam would do. Vocabulary is also another way which is easily learned through Srimad Bhagavatam because it's set in context, something that, you enjoy reading and you take words from those books, then it becomes effortless. For example, if there's a sentence that the whole place was drenched in water, right? So you ask the child, what does that mean? So he's going to guess, oh, it means soaked, right? I have had that experience with so many children. You teach them vocabulary through Srimad Bhagavatam, it just becomes effortless. And they have so much fun doing that. Okay, bro. So methodology is very enjoyable. It's fun because we sit in a circle or in any form, and then we take turns reading only the translations, not the purports. The reason is because with children, if you read purports, then the process becomes slows down, and they may get a little sidetracked, distracted, because it's just very long. And even if it's not long, the story kind of ends, doesn't move as smoothly. Not to say that we shouldn't read purports. So what happens? What do? The parent or the teacher reads the purports ahead of time and gives the material, the points from the purport to the child in the form of discussion. So we are giving them purport, but the parent or the teacher is giving them the purpose. Now we don't have to give every purport and everything that's in the purport. Give the things that Prabhupada emphasizes, things that you think would be very beneficial for the child. And because the Bhagavatam can be taught in layers, is best taught in layers. We cannot give our children everything in one time. The children who start early, they will be reading Bhagavatam many times growing up, right? It's not their first time. So we give them, even if we develop some points from some of the purpose, that's very good. If the child takes away even 1 point in one day, one essential point in that 1 day of discussion, that's also very good. So then comes time for reflection, where we ask the child what he or she thinks about the story or about the section that we read. Generally, I would do like a chapter a day, which would be about average of maybe between 30 and 40 verses, roughly. I would be able to finish a chapter with discussion, with me explaining, highlighting some of the points in the form of discussion. And children love to share their own opinion or their own reflection on what we read. They love to speak. So you can see that it also develops good communication skills, good vocabulary. All these things are doing, the discussion is doing. So the success of the academic success of homeschooling comes through the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. And what to speak of the knowledge that one gets from Srimad Bhagavatam. You can see how much different types of knowledge is contained in Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada said that Srimad Bhagavatam can teach you every psychological situation in the world. It takes care of everything. Anything about a nature of a person, why a person behaves the way they behave, is all can be understood through the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. And what to speak about understanding the world today, what's going on in the world today, right? So many, Srimad Bhagavatam is a practical book. It's not an outdated book that some people in the olden days were doing, and we have nothing of relevance here. It's a book that's timeless. Now, in terms of, for example, in 7th canto, here, the story of Hiranyakashipu, right? Prabhupada said there's so many Hiranyakashipus today. The things that Hiranyakashipu did is very much happening today, right? The destruction of trees, environment, killing of cows, all this Hiranyakashipu was doing. Destroying all the Brahmanical principles. No good advisors to the leaders. So all these things are in that story. So that when the child has to deal with this material world, he's prepared for it. He knows. One can learn so much about material life through Shastra. then one can actually go out there to experience it. One can actually experience and learn more through hearing, through the process of Shravan, through the process of hearing in Srimad Bhagavatam and through these great souls, than one can understand about material life in any other way, by just being in the material life. And that kind of refutes that argument that people have, that if they don't experience material life, then won't they be limited? That they be surprised when they do have to experience that? It's not true, because they are hearing all about material life. Prabhupada, why did he not, why did he stress so much about the nature of this material world rather than Krishna's pastimes? Because unless we understand the nature of this material world, how can we develop an attraction for Krishna? Only when we are fed up with the world, when we know that there is actually one except for Krishna consciousness, then how can we stand, Krishna? How can we appreciate him? So a foundation on this, whether you're homeschooling or not homeschooling, is very, very important. For children who are not being homeschooled, this is their armor. When they go out into the world, they will, this understanding, this depth that they get about the nature of this material life will protect them. Okay, Prabhu, next one. So yeah, so I'm not going to go through all this because I've passed my time. So I just want to tell you that Srimad Bhagavatam can be taught at every stage of one's child's life, and there's so many wonderful ways to teach. There's 4 to 5 year olds. So I mean, a 4 to 5 year old, I had the opportunity to teach some 4 to 5 year olds, and it's amazing how deep they go and the effect it has on them in terms of in terms of developing their character. I'll just tell you one small thing. I was doing some Skype classes with my grandson, and we were doing these stories, and we had been doing quite a few stories, and then we came to Dhruva's story, and then Dhruva's story. There was this scene of this airplane going to Vaikuntha, coming for Dhruva to get Dhruva, and you know the story of how Dhruva was hesitating to sit on that airplane, and because he wanted his mother also to go. So highlighting the quality of gratefulness, right? So anyway, my grandson said that, Daddy, I want to go on this airplane, because there was such a beautiful description of the airplane and the two associates, Nanda and Sunanda. It was just such a beautiful description. He got very attracted. He says, I want to go on that plane right now. And I said, okay, one day you can. And then he said, no, but I want to go now. So I told him, okay, you can go, but then you have to leave your mother and father behind, because they won't be able to go with you. So he started thinking about it, and he says, okay, well, I think I'm going to wait, because I don't want to make the same mistake that Ajamal did. And he was like maybe 5 years old, 4.5 years old. And it really shocked me, He had remembered that story, the story of Ajamal, who was feeling very bad after he realized all his sinful activities that he did with the prostitute. He was regretting, and he was regretting the fact that he had neglected his old parents. And he remembered that, okay? So I like to tell this story, and you may have heard that from me, but it shows that how deep the children can go, and these stories have such a deep effect on their character. Things that we could teach them forever. Oh, you should respect me. You should be respectful. I've done so much for you. Or you should respect the elders. It hardly has any effect on them. Why? Because of the pressure from outside. When children go to school, this is the last thing they learn, is how to respect their seniors and their parents. They learn just the opposite. But these things have such an opposite effect on the children. The Shastra has such a wonderful effect. Okay, next one, Prabhu. And this is getting to the older kids. The nature changes. We go more deep, of course. but the process is the same, you know. And there's so many deep stories. Every story goes so deep. Dhruva, Prahlad's story, Gajendra and the crocodile story. Every one of them are teaching different principles, emphasizing the same principles. You know? Okay. We'll skip all this, Prabhu. Let's go to preaching the essence. Preaching is the essence. Yeah. So this is the last one, and I've already spoken about it quite a bit. How when we give this to others, we actually become very strong as devotees. People think that children need to learn, and teaching comes later, right? But teaching or preaching is a very effective form of learning. That's why we always engage the old child stronger. Our identity as devotees, our devotional character, it becomes stronger. And skills, I've already talked about that, how public speaking skills and all these things are automatically, naturally taught through the process of preaching. Why? Because you have to connect, you have to speak, you have to debate, you have to answer questions that may be challenging. You have to show that why you're a devotee. And if you're doing well, you are applauded. So this gives a lot of encouragement to a child. And so many preaching opportunities are there. It develops also social skills. Preaching is a very powerful way to develop social skills, right? When we do, when we go out and do preaching programs, school programs, Harinam, book distribution, interfaith services, schools and college programs. And I tell you, for my own time homeschooling my children, I can say very honestly that a lot of the children's education was greatly affected, impacted by these programs. So we tend to think that schooling means that for 8 hours a day you have to be behind, or 6 hours a day you have to be behind a desk and do your schoolwork. But the real schooling is outside the home. It's outside the home. Why? Because one learns so much. We know that, right? When we take our children on vacation trips, there's so much about geography and so many things they learn, right? So the education that goes outside is very, very effective. We used to even do prison programs once a month. Now, what child gets an opportunity to go to a prison and preach over there, you know? And it was all so fun, so much variety, so much fun. Okay. So I've already talked a lot about the social skills. We should not hesitate to give our children adult association. That's very, very important. We tend to think that peer association is more important than adult association. Peer association is necessary, but Prabhupada said this, okay? Adult association is more important than peer association. Why? Because a child picks up a sense of responsibility and character through good adult association. It doesn't mean we don't give our children friends to play with. They do need, and they express their creativity through associating with friends and playing imaginative games and all those things. So those things are important, but we should not neglect adult association. In homeschooling, both of them can be given very well. It's very amazing. Peer association can be given by having a few friends rather than a whole many friends. Even a few good friends are enough. And that again can be done through so many ways. Preaching programs, participating in temple programs, Harinam, book distribution, and their friends in the temple. So we take them out. We let them see the world, but in a protected way. This is the difference. Okay, for a devotee parent, is we are exposing our children, but we are exposing them in a protected way. We're not isolating them, but we are insulating them from all the negative influences. This is the nature of this material world, is that they're going to pick it up anyway. you can't really protect them. After a certain age, they have to fly away from the nest. They have to fly their own plane. What we are doing, we're giving them a strong foundation in Krishna consciousness, which is a very wonderful shield and armor to have. We're giving them the knowledge. And by the way, homeschooling is not forever. For most of us, it's going to be like 10 years, maybe. So it's not forever, and then they will have to go out into the world, study all those subjects, right? Study all those subjects that they're supposed to study in school, in college. So it's not like you are shielding them; you're just preparing them for what's coming. And most of them, even though they may get distracted a little bit, they will pass the test. Okay. Yes, Prabhu. So vacations is also such a benefit in homeschooling, because vacations you can take anytime. It's not like you're stuck in summer. Summer, it's very hot in India. So we would always go in Kartik, during Kartik, because you can pick your own time. So we were doing Braj Mandal. So many times we did Braj Mandal, Parikram, which is a month walk, long walk around Vrindavan, around Braj. And you can imagine the skills they picked up over there, how you can live a simple life, right? A person doesn't need much, because for a whole month we had just maybe a little suitcase and slept in tents, right? So one realizes, one doesn't really need that much to be happy, right? And what to speak of association, by so many wonderful, devotees and sannyasis. The children also got a chance to be in dramas over there that they would put up practically every night. So what about trips to theme parks, aquariums, and zoos? Well, we would go to these places if they were on the way, right? Sometimes you're trying to go to a place, a temple, and these things were along the way. I'll take that opportunity and go. I know my children's experience in Disneyland was not very good. Long lines and things like that. So after all, when children don't grow up with Mickey Mouse and all those things, they don't attract the heart. They don't attract, because they have no taste for it. But they have taste for other Krishna conscious things. Okay. Next one. So these are the resources that you can avail. My humble self has written, a book called Homeschooling Krishna's Children, which was published by BVT and is available. All these books are available on Amazon all over the world. And in India, they have a local publisher as well, which is based in Delhi, and the information is below. Books at Golden Media Publishing. And you can get all the 4 cantos have been published in India as well as on Amazon. It's everywhere. So please, and these are guidebooks that have been, done by many parents around the world who have helped in that process of creating resources on every chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And this is so nice because children, they can study philosophy, but in a fun way. So I'm sure some of you may have already seen the books, and these books are being taught being utilized and taught in Mayapur International School, as well as the Gurukula in the Vrindavan International School. Vrindavan International School has been using them for quite some time, maybe 3 or 4 years, and they have I think they've gone up to 3rd canto or something, and for the middle school, which means children between 11 and 14 or something. And now they're introducing it for the primary school as well. So in other words, the activities can be adapted to different age groups. Of course, as the cantos are getting higher, then the material also becomes a little bit more for older children, because we are assuming that children will start with canto 1. So if this becomes an additional resource for parents who hesitate on teaching Srimad Bhagavatam. Of course, what I recommend is the reading, the translations, the same process, the same methodology, discussion, and then going to this guidebook and doing the activities. Okay, so I will stop here with my presentation. I know I went over time. Oh, I went very much over time. Sorry. So anyway, these are, so if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much for this wonderful description or the session on homeschooling. And there are some questions on the chat. I will repeat them, or maybe the devotees who asked them could unmute, and if they want, they can speak up. One question is from, I won't take the names because I think we can post this. We will see. Our major worry is our son getting bored because he will not have many friends. Also, we are not sure if we can devote much time.
Yes. Yeah, it's a good question, a very common question in terms of associate, children needing other friends to play with. Yes, I mean, one has to see one's situation. I know it's a little easier when you have two children, you're homeschooling two children because they have each other. If you have a community where children can play with other children, that also helps. But so you do what you can. If it's very difficult, like I said, there are people who absolutely cannot homeschool, then I would suggest doing Srimad Bhagavatam on the side and helping him with the Krishna consciousness, taking him frequently to the temple, engaging him in all types of activities in the temple, and giving your own association as well as the association with other devotees.
Thank you, Mataji. Another question is, would you be able to share a sample schedule?
Mm-hmm. Very good question. See, schedule will work according to your own requirements, your needs, and your nature. There are some people who are really like a very highly structured atmosphere. So, and they do really well with that, like more like a school where they have a particular a room which is set aside for homeschooling with a desk and all the materials that the child needs, and an allotted time when he's in that room and studying and doing his work. And some devotees, they feel better, or they work better in a more flexible environment, which means, okay, I'm teaching, and while he's doing his homework, I'm also cooking, or I try to fit in the time. Suppose something comes up, then I wait, I delay the homeschooling, do it in the weekend. And for me, that worked for me because we were running a center and things got really busy a lot of the times. So either way is good, but in terms of a general structure, it's always nice, like I said, starting with the morning program. If you're homeschooling, right, a good morning program, and then maybe breakfast after that or before that, and then reading Srimad Bhagavatam with them. That was the first thing, because when the mind is fresh, then the child is able to, soak in and develop and soak in the teachings, instructions in the Srimad Bhagavatam a lot deeper. So the first thing is study of Shastra. And I used to spend like anywhere between 1 and 2 hours every day with a break in between, right? But the amazing thing was that it's so, it captures the heart so much that the children were not being forced to come and study Srimad Bhagavatam. They actually loved it because they wanted to do it, because there was so much discussion and so much fun studying that. And it's so challenging. So the children it challenges their mind, and they like that, At a certain point in their life, at a certain age, they're questioning anyway, why teenage life is so difficult? Because that is the time when they a child is questioning everything, you know. Why is it? Why should I be a devotee? Why is it that I'm different? Why should I believe in a, creation according to Srimad Bhagavatam? What's wrong with the creation theory propounded by scientists? They're questioning. The mind wants answers, right? So by giving them these, by teaching Srimad Bhagavatam and giving that conviction through the Vedic perspective, they are able to, when they study these other topics, which some of them have to, they're able to always, be able to distinguish between the two and resolve these differences, you know. So the starting with Srimad Bhagavatam is very, very nice. Okay. And then we used to, again, take a break. And, if you had things to do in the temple, we would do that. And, they would get a little break in terms of, the type of things we would do. It would be sometimes math or music. Mostly we did music and things like that after lunch, because that would be really, it's harder to put them to work. So we would do music at that time, or we would go out. So our life was very much, not very stable in terms of our schedule. So we're doing all kinds of things. Sometimes a preaching activity would come on a certain day and time. So we had to adjust the homeschooling accordingly. So I was very, very flexible. Because see, anytime we are doing something, an activity outside the home, it's still education. So we don't have to cram everything on the children and just give them all, knowledge just from the books and workbooks, and think this is how they're educated. But really, like I said, just for them to be out in the world there, or even within the temple in terms of helping arrange a program, or is such practical training that these children actually become very expert in every field of life. Especially if you're near a temple, is such an asset. I tell you, it's such an asset, because you can avail of all the opportunities that a child generally is not able to get. But don't lose heart if you're not near the temple. For us, it was not the temple. We had to make a temple. And in other words, we had to, create a temple. So for us, it was not like we had that facility of devotee association from day one. We did not, we had to make our own association. In fact, for many, many years, the only association we had were of each other. We were association for each other, when we first moved to Boise, the whole place was so isolated. The population grew over time. It was just practically like a farm, when we moved there. There were no devotees when we moved there. So if we wanted association, we had to create association. And we were association for each other, you see. Actually, homeschooling is recommended for people who are living in farms and they have nobody, they're isolated, because it works in those moments and in those scenarios as well. It's so wonderful at homeschooling because it can work under any circumstances, right? And we don't have to worry so much, because ultimately Krishna, because we are pleasing Krishna, Krishna is happy, Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So thank you, Mataji. There are a couple of more questions. Mm-hmm. So there's one question which is asking, can I have a manual for homeschooling and also for motivational stories? In response to that, I already provided the link on Amazon to your book, Mataji, and also to the Srimad Bhagavatam book. So I think those are wonderful resources for manual for homeschooling and motivational stories, etc. Anything you want to add beyond that?
Well, Urmila Mataji's Learn to Read series is very nice, in helping children learn to read. I know it's not being published anymore, but if you can get hold of them, they're excellent books for teaching children how to read.
Okay, thank you, Mataji. Then there is a very nice question here, which reads, my question is, if we don't have the option of homeschooling, can we read Srimad Bhagavatam at home to increase their knowledge and values and devotee association at the temple. By doing the above, will it protect the kids from getting influenced by friends and bad association at school, even if we send them to school?
Well, yes, because Srimad Bhagavatam is so powerful. It acts like a time bomb, It's just so powerful. The association that a child gets from the personalities in Srimad Bhagavatam have a magical effect on the child, However, we must be very determined to give them that association of Srimad Bhagavatam. And what happens is, because school life becomes um, it takes away so many hours of a child's life, that by the time the child comes home, he's so tired and in such a non-devotional frame of mind, right? Because of the influence there, that to bring him back to a devotional frame of mind is a little bit of a challenge, right? So those struggles are there. But needless to say, Srimad Bhagavatam will have its impact. It will have its potency and impact on any child, whether homeschooling or not homeschooling. It's the challenge that one faces in terms of getting a child to study these books after school and things like that, and trying to counteract the influence that they pick up in school. So what I would suggest, yes, then be more determined to give them Srimad Bhagavatam. If the children are going to school, give them your association, find time for them to sit and talk to them about what's happening in school. And many times this can be done during the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. A lot of the practical problems that we were facing, in the temple and in elsewhere, we were discussing during Srimad Bhagavatam. Because why? Because those topics naturally come up. It just naturally comes up, those challenges. Because when we hear the good character of these great devotees, we start looking inwards and we start thinking, well, maybe this is a better way to act, you see? So keeping an open lines of communication, very important among the child and the parent, through the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because the child will not open up except through Shastra like that. They generally close up and they don't want to tell their parents anything, right? Much. Because they think their parents won't understand them. Because they're facing two different identities, right? One school, one home. And sometimes you can't blame the child because he's trying to, he's trying to be where he's at. He's confused. So to take away that confusion, one has to study Prabhupada's books with him. Okay. So I would definitely if you need to send him to school, many people have that circumstance which they cannot homeschool, then please be determined. It's just my humble request to study Srimad Bhagavatam with your children, take them to the temple, get them really involved in the temple in different activities.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. I have been keeping track of who was raising hands and when the questions were coming in. So trying to be fair to everyone. So I think Varsha Mataji had raised her hand. Please, you can unmute and ask your question.
Yes. Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you. I'm so grateful to you. I just attended your seminar 2 years ago, and from that day onwards, we trying homeschool, and it's been 2 years, and it's wonderful journey. But my question is like, I'm trying to include your Bhagavatam as like a read aloud, and because of me, I'm not that confident to use only Bhagavatam for their curriculum. So I'm using box curriculum also, but it's like overwhelming to my kids. Not that much overwhelming. They enjoying both stuff, but I feel like they're lacking in some criterias. But it's for me, how I can overcome that struggle, because I want to include more Bhagavatam, but I'm not able to do that.
Well, it not. I mean, if you need to introduce other books, that's absolutely okay to do it. Like I said, as long as you include the study of Srimad Bhagavatam in your homeschooling, it's okay to, if you don't feel confident, it's okay, because you can introduce other books, but then spend adequate time, studying these books for them, okay? But like I said, not like a theoretical school book. It should be enjoyable. It should be something that will attract their hearts to Krishna. Okay, so we have to present it in a wonderful way, in a fun way to them. But like I said, but then in the mood at home should also be conducive to spiritual environment and all the points that I talked about, right? Avoiding media, this television media and all this internet and all that. Also, these things also take away that effect of spiritual knowledge, take it away, because like I said, it dilutes it. So building an environment at home which is very, very Krishna conscious, So all these things collectively will help. Going out for preaching programs. So remember, it's a whole package. It's not just one thing. So we read Srimad Bhagavatam, but then we have to go and practice it outside, right? So the practical part was a big part in my life. It was like children, when you ask them about homeschooling, they don't remember homeschooling. They remember it's at one big playtime. But I knew that they were being educated, you see? So all these things will also have an impact on their Krishna consciousness, okay? The practical side and the theoretical side. So don't be shy of doing even other things, which will help them, convince them of their identity as devotees. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Next question is how to help kids when they do back talking.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's amazing. I keep going to study Srimad Bhagavatam, but as the children read these stories and the great characters, personalities, all this becomes less and less and less because they just become saintly. And so by studying Srimad Bhagavatam and leading a life which is steeped in Krishna consciousness, is going to rub on their character. If we are using Srimad Bhagavatam as one of the subjects and then as done with, and the rest of the time we're just doing things that are very non-devotee like, so obviously the impact will be less, right? So the whole, it's a whole package that Prabhupada gave us. In other words, we have to develop that mood of Krishna consciousness all day. Don't be shy of making them leading a Krishna conscious life. They're going to get enough of that material life later on, Give them the joys. Prabhupada said, the way you say no to a child is not by saying, no, don't do it. You give them the joys of Krishna consciousness. So because if you tell the child, no, don't do it, the child says, no, but I'll do it. He's going to do just the opposite. But if you give the higher taste, the joys of Krishna consciousness, naturally he's going to give up his bad habits. And that those joys of Krishna consciousness come in so many different ways. So many practical ways, so many ways of hearing. Okay.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. Next question is, Mataji, what's your time constraint? First of all, didn't want to.
Yeah, no, I'm okay, Prabhu. I'm okay as long as, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
We can
Mataji.
take a little bit more. Yeah. How many questions are there? Prabhu?
Looks like there are about 5 questions on the chat and another 4 devotees have raised hands. So maybe like 7, 8 questions.
Yeah, I have nothing urgent, Prabhu, so I'm okay with that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your generous time. So Mataji, the next question is, one Prabhuji is asking, grandchildren are 13 and 15. What is your advice and recommendation? So I think the question is on the lines of like, since most of your presentation was geared towards starting the homeschooling from an earlier age, what to do when they are already in that age? I think that's the spirit of the question.
Yes, Prabhu. In other words, are you contemplating homeschooling at the age of 13 or 14, or are you talking about in general how to raise children who are that old?
Do you want to unmute and respond to that counter question?
Mataji, I am in India, Bombay. my children are in US. They are in San Francisco.
Okay.
Now, I am just trying to kind of give them little platform for that purpose.
Hmm.
So that is the objective.
Yeah. Yes. Prabhu.
And you know, just on the side, you know, I just want to. I have a feeling that I have met you in 2004 in Boise.
Hmm. Okay, Prabhu. So since time is short, if you're Prabhu, you are in India and they're in America. So I, like I said, you can encourage them to go to the temple and try to read Srimad Bhagavatam, and also participate interact with devotees there. So it all, if they have friends who are devotees also, then that will have a great impact on them. So because at this age, children need peer association, and the peer association, it becomes a very powerful force in their life. So the association is very important at this age because they're not going to listen, to just parents telling them to do things. What is going to have a greater impact on them, that will have an impact, but what will have a great impact on them is peer association through the temple. Okay.
Okay, Mataji. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Next question is, we have Canto 1 and 1 to 4 in the form of your books and the workbooks. When will the complete Srimad Bhagavatam be available?
Mm-hmm.
And the next question by the same devotee is, after reading, then what?
After, okay. So regarding the first question, the answer to the first question, it takes a while to finish a canto depending on the number of chapters, but we cover like a chapter a week. We create resources for a chapter a week. So depending on the number of chapters, it takes that many months. So these cantos, 3, 4, they are very long cantos. 3 had like 33 chapters, something. So accordingly, it takes that many months. So a canto which are smaller chapters will naturally take. So we are working right now on the 5th canto, Prabhu, and we've finished like 10 chapters of the 5th canto. So our schedule is 1 a week, and there's different parents who are, creating resources, and we look at them, and and we have artwork to be that needs to be done, and so many little things. So it takes a little while to do them. So we don't know whether Krishna willing when we're going to finish it, but with all of your mercy and blessings, we hope to carry on. Okay. Now regarding what after reading, you mean, I didn't quite get that question.
Maybe the devotee can unmute and explain a little better if they would like. Or if you are not able to unmute, then that's fine. We can come back to the question at a later time.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is how to allocate time for physical activity.
Oh, that's very important for children to exercise and through play and stretch out. Very, very important for the healthy building of bones and their growth. Very important. So we can do it in different ways. They can you can engage them in playtime in terms of depending what facility is there for you. If swimming is a good facility, Prabhupada always said that swimming was a Vaishnav sport. So swimming is good. And if that's not possible, then just, maybe you can put a basketball hoop outside or have friends who can come and play with them. So a lot of our playtime for our children, from my own experience, was doing, so many practical services in the temple. There was so much to do because we were struggling as the single family in the early stages, right? That we needed so much help, and our children was such great help. We had 4 extra hands in helping us, and so they got a lot of their physical exercise through helping, clean and helping us cook, and setting up festivals, organizing festivals, cleaning the altar, so many things. So for us, it worked that way. That actually had to they were, the outside sports was, I didn't feel a necessity for that for them. But it may not be like this for every one of us. So you can try to look around and see what's available in terms of sports. But I would definitely recommend some sports that Prabhupada recommended if you're looking for exercise for their health, then swimming is one good one. And he also, I think, baseball, where it's quite violent. So we should try to stay away from those games for our children.
Okay, next, thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Next, we'll go to Kama Gayatri. Mataji, you have your hand raised.
Hi, Krishna.
Hare-
Aruddha, please accept my obeisances.
Hare
All
Krishna.
glories of Prabhupada.
Bye-bye.
I'm so happy to see you. I had a question about age differences with homeschooling. We have, a 4-year-old and a 10-and-a-half-year-old, so it's quite a big gap. But would you suggest just putting them together for Srimad Bhagavatam class, even if it is such an age gap? That was one question. I had one other question too. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, because it's something that needs to work. Otherwise, you'll be spending double time with each one of them, right?
Yeah.
Teaching them separately. Well, because your younger child is 4.5, and she's old enough to be able to sit, then you could try teaching them together, because the younger child mostly becomes very restless and needs something to do with their hands, right, and their mind and everything. So what I would do is give them like soft toys, like maybe coloring or some soft toys that they can play with, which doesn't make a rattle, which doesn't make noise while you're reading translations with the children or with the older one, teaching him Srimad Bhagavatam. You can try that. And what happens is she can be engaged very nicely, the younger one, through that process. And this way, it's amazing how the younger child, you think they're not listening, but they do listen. They listen so carefully that when you ask them a question while you're doing Srimad Bhagavatam, a simple question for a younger one and a more challenging question for the older one, it's amazing that when you ask that simple question, she's heard it all out, she's heard everything, and she's able to answer. I've had that experience. Yeah, I've had that experience. And many mothers have told me that. You think they're not listening, but they're actually listening. And I've tried that process with my own children and also with other children. It really, really works.
Wow.
And if she's too disruptive, then you would have to do it separately. Yes.
Right. But I thought at least at that time of the day, that's something they can do together. And then when they do their separate studies, of course, that's different, and you have to get both of them going. But that leads me to the next question, which is sometimes the difficulty with focusing. I know we've been using your Srimad Bhagavatam activity books with the Sunday school in Boise, and that's been really nice. I mean, the kids are really, really stimulated. Even if we just have time, usually it even goes to 1.5 hours, but it's on Zoom and just everyone loves it. We have lots of, we have more attendance now too, because I think it's very stimulating. I tried to use the activity book for homeschooling, but I started it in the summer and Aja just wouldn't have it. He saw it all of a sudden as a chore, and then that made me go, oh, I don't want to do it anymore because it's not fun. Sunday school's always been fun, and something he's wanted to come to. I don't want that to go away. So when you see that they're struggling or they don't want to do it, how do you is the thing to do is to make it more fun, especially if kids' attention is a little bit diverted sometimes and they have some attention problems. How do you not make it, how do you make it more fun? If I'm not using the Sunday school book, but I only use it on Sunday with the kids for 1.5 hours, what should I just go and do the scriptures maybe or just read the scriptures and make it really simple? That was just maybe an idea I have.
Yes, yes. If I wouldn't push him so hard. So what I would do is do the discussion part. Take turns reading translations and discuss, and let him give his realizations, and you make that connection with him, and make that connection with Srimad Bhagavatam, which goes alongside your connection with him, when you're reading together. I know the children that I've taught Srimad Bhagavatam to, we have such a deep connection. Somehow the connection that through the study of Shastra is much deeper than a material connection, without Shastra, these children never forget you, and you cannot forget them, So yeah, so make that connection, give him that joy that he can appreciate Srimad Bhagavatam. It's a difficult age also he's going through,
Yes.
It's not easy. So I would just do that for now and see how it goes. Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Aruddha.
Thank you. Next, we'll take a question from the chat. This is the last one on the chat. And then we have a couple of more devotees who have raised their hands. So on the chat, it is, how do we make kids listen? This is probably similar to how do we help with back talking. But the follow-on question is also, how do we limit internet and TV time and make them focus? So how do we make kids listen, and how do we limit internet and TV time and make them focus?
Yeah. So like I said, the answer to that question will be pretty much similar to the back talking, because when we give them the joys of Krishna consciousness, children automatically learn good behavior. Okay. Because if we force them and we just punish them, that's not a very, they just become rebellious, don't they? They just become rebellious. But then if we approach them in a way that's more positive, of course, they also need discipline. If they're being especially naughty, then they have to be disciplined. Without discipline, there is no obedience, right? So we have to give a combination of both discipline and training, both, in a love both. So discipline and love go together. In other words, the child should both love and fear the teacher. They should be love. The teacher should give unconditional, the parent should give unconditional love to the child. No doubt about that. And then at the same time, there should be a certain fear within the child that if I don't do this, I will be reprimanded. And that fear should be just naturally out of love, out of respect, right? The child should be able to respect the parent, in a way that she or he will want to please the mother or father. That becomes the incentive for the child, that I want to please my mother, because they know in the heart the mother will or the father will give anything for them, will do anything for them. So build on that love and trust, a child can prosper. So you have to use a combination of discipline and teaching by giving, affection, and also a higher taste of Krishna consciousness. Okay. Even a cow will give milk if it gets a lot of affection, right? So in other words, the children need that affection. We shouldn't deny them that affection due to discipline, but at the same time, they should know that this is the border. This is where it needs to stop. Right? I remember with my children, if I showed them my eyes, it was enough for them to stop being naughty. Like they would fear me, but there was. But I would do anything for them. They knew that there was so much love, So it's got to be, and again, the whole package is there, that Prabhupada gave us.
Mataji, there was that follow-on to the thing that how to limit internet and TV time and make them focus.
Yeah, how to limit internet and TV time. Yeah. So TV, I wouldn't even recommend, turning it on. Why bother having a TV, a television? In our house, we had a TV, but it was never connected, like it never turned on, So we used to use it as a VHS player, And so we would watch Krishna conscious once in a while we would sit together and watch. So it would be a very special time or a very, occasional time when we did that. It was not very frequent. So the television is not necessary, is not needed. If you want to watch a certain news or something, you can get that, like I said, from reading the headlines in the newspaper or some other way. You can hear about what's going on into the world. From and because it's so addictive, suppose your child is watching a certain cartoon. Well, what happens is when the child stops, when the cartoon ends, they don't stop at that. They want to watch more and more. And it's very, very addictive. So if you can manage, that's why starting early without television is easier, a lot easier, right? And it doesn't help if the other devotee children are watching television. So as a community, if you are strong, it really helps the children. It really helps. So that's one thing. And then limiting internet would be what I suggested, that we don't have it always on the on mode. When we need to, we use it and then we turn it off. Okay. And when we give that example to our children, then the children understand, and we discipline them like that. Okay, you need to do this. Okay, you can do it, and then they turn on. So in other words, being aware of what the child is doing, in terms of internet is very crucial.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you so much for that. Next, we will come to, so we are done with the questions on the chat. Cassandra, Mataji, you want to unmute?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you very much for your presentation. So I would just like to know your thoughts about, because I have a 2-year-old son who will begin homeschool very, very, very soon. And I was wondering, I feel like my biggest challenge would be myself, to become more motivated every day, to become more enthusiastic. And so I was wondering I was wondering on your thoughts of how it would be to maybe look for a mataji, like a companion who I can have throughout this journey. So what we can share our thoughts, express our thoughts, maybe our realizations, and motivate each other, inspire each other. To because I know that I'm going to need someone like that. My husband's a good resource, but he's busy. He has things he's going on. He's working all day. So just wondering what your thoughts would be on that.
Yes.
Before you answer, Mataji, just a quick thing. So Cassandra, Mataji, are you okay with your portion being recorded and posted online?
Yes, very okay with it.
Thank you. And Kama Gayatri, Mataji, before you drop off, were you okay with that as well? Okay, but go ahead and
Yes, Prabhu. Yes,
okay,
I'm
got
okay
it.
with it.
Got it. Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's okay. Yeah. So yes, your question is very, very important because I was hoping that at some point we could have a very strong homeschooling co-op amongst all of you here, just so we can, have that unity where we can exchange thoughts with each other, even receive help in terms of certain areas of homeschooling, like maybe even join up together to study Bhagavatam together. And that can happen if like-minded devotees come together and they have similar interests in terms of teaching homeschooling our children. First of all, they would have to be homeschoolers, and secondly, they would have to have be very, would desire to teach children Srimad Bhagavatam. So these two things, and plus any other subject, whatever the typical homeschooler, whatever he does, right? So if we have that, then I think you will be able to get that association. But in terms of physically having a parent or family there, that all depends whether that's available in your area or not, whether there is a parent, a family that's homeschooling, and whether your child can connect with those, and you can share resources with each other. It all depends. But I know it's possible over, a bigger group, right? Which you can share through Zoom or through phone conversations and things like that. So that's one way. But in order to keep inspired, the biggest inspiration that I got is just seeing the rewards as time went on. That for me was the biggest inspiration that kept me going. Believe me, I had my struggles. I had my struggles and my down moments many times, and you know, and just sometimes being too overloaded. But also had so much. But also I had so much of the other side, the joys, the rewards that I experienced in while homeschooling. That was a lot more than my struggles. The satisfaction that I got in seeing the children grow up and being nice devotees and seeing their progress both academically and spiritually was my inspiration. In fact, when I stopped homeschooling, I was thinking, how will my life go on? I missed so much their association, and I missed homeschooling them. I lost that inspiration for some time, and I was thinking, oh, I wish I could just keep homeschooling my children, you know. So I really got into helping others homeschool, because I thought this is where I will experience that same reward, you know. So if you just take the plunge and you just do it, then you will see the rewards a lot. And you know, life is such that you have to sacrifice. You know, this is how material life is, right? Struggles are going to be there. So if you're not homeschooling, do you think the struggles are any less when you send the child to school? My children went to school before I discovered homeschooling for 2 years. And I remember I had more, you know, I had more heartaches and more worries at that time than I had when they were being homeschooled, because they were right there and I knew what was going on. But during that time, I was just always just something or the other. You know, I had to run and take different things for them because they could not eat, you know, cakes which had eggs in it. So I had to find substitutes for that. I had to volunteer time to see whether things were what they were learning, just to keep in touch. You know, so it was a constant struggle for me. And then when they came home, I had to undo everything, you know, in a way that they can, you know, struggles with so many things. So what I'm saying is that it's going to be a struggle either way. So take your pick, you know. Material life is not easy. But the thing about Krishna consciousness is just, it comes with such a wonderful package of happiness and satisfaction in knowing that people, the children that you love so dearly, they are in the right track. Okay.
Thank you.
Mataji.
Next, we have a question by SM. Please go ahead. You're muted, looks like.
Okay.
We can't seem to hear you. Still can't hear.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, now we can hear.
Hare Krishna. I'm sorry about that, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Mataji. I don't have a question as such, but I would like to share my story in a minute's time. I have to thank Aruddha Mataji because it all started. We got a book, her homeschooling book, How to Homeschool Krishna's Children, from Alachua Temple in 2012. And since then, it has a tremendous transformation for us. After reading the book in one stretch, me and my husband decided to homeschool my kids. And we had successfully done by Guru and Krishna's mercy so far. And my elder one is joining college this year. He's 17 and he's joining as a junior. And my younger son is in 11th grade. So I can't thank you enough, Mataji. That's the main thing I wanted to share today.
Mataji, thank you. But the whole, as you can see, all the credit goes to Srila Prabhupada. They are his books, his instructions, and so this is all glories of you know, our eternal spiritual master. Thank you.
Yes, Yes, Mataji, you are absolutely true, correct. Prabhupada's books are amazing, and you are the inspiration behind that, because without that, if I don't know, it's all Lord's arrangement. We just went to the gift shop for something else, and I found this book so attractive. We got it and just read it, and that's it. It's changed everything. So I thought by sharing this, it will be a motivation for the other parents. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji, for your kind words. The credit really also goes to you for being so determined and wanting to, is so determined, because it's not easy in this time and age.
Yes. Thank you.
Are you okay again being recorded, Mataji, and being posted? This video being
Yes,
posted?
Prabhu.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your journey.
Thanks.
Last question is by Priya Sharma. Would you like to unmute and ask your question? And are you okay again being this being posted?
Yes, Prabhuji, not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mataji, Aruddha Mataji, for taking time for us. My question is, so I have two kids. One is a 2.5-year-old and one is 1-year-old baby. So what I have seen is I want to homeschool them, but my spiritual growth has been declined, actually not even stable. It was good initially. Now after, kids, it is declining because most of the time it's going with the household chores, taking care of the baby. And that's when I get a little devastated, thinking that, okay, my goals are different. I want to homeschool them, but since my growth is not happening, how will I homeschool them? And I get very disappointed many times and start looking for options like sending them to some school, which I don't want to do. And this thought that my growth is not happening, how will I put my kids into good Krishna conscious upbringing, is something which bothers me. So that's why, first question is how should I overcome that thinking? And second, how should I homeschool kids when they are so young? As I said, my first one is his 2.5-year-old. So how should I do his homeschooling right from the beginning in the right way? So these are my two questions.
Yes. These struggles are very natural. I myself have gone through these struggles during this period, but remember, it's not forever, right? These struggles are there, and it's gonna pass. It's gonna pass. This hard time is gonna pass. Where children are so little that it's hard to find your own, time, right? Your own growth. Yeah. So the best way would be to actually, to be in association. In other words, always try to make your own life Krishna conscious, by developing that environment at home, in spite of everything, have the chanting and the devotional activities going on, try to do things that will help you develop your consciousness. See if your husband can help you in certain areas. So, that also helps. Try to see if you can arrange your home life in such a way that you can simplify it, in practical ways to simplify your house life and, develop those things. I remember I was struggling so hard with these things, because the chores was so overwhelming, the household chores, and, how do you find time for anything, right? They were so overwhelming, right? So I was trying to also started devising ways how to conserve time, how to reduce that time, which, goes in, keeping up the house and this and that, away from actually. So I was doing things like that. So making your life more utility, more useful, where you can find more priority time for spiritual life. I kind of redesigned my kitchen. I in a way that I could clean it in 10 minutes. And I started doing so many things, Yeah, so just try to see where you can save time so you can spend on the real things. And these are also real important things, when you're cooking prasadam for your family. But also don't get discouraged if that's all you're doing, because these activities are devotional service. you're trying to raise a Krishna conscious family.
Yes.
Two good devotees, the impact that they can have in the world, may outdo the impact that 50 others can do. You see?
Yes.
So right now it seems like unfortunate, but it can become very fortunate. Just like Suniti, she made an unfortunate situation into a very fortunate situation, right?
Yes, Mataji.
So think like that. Think about that actually Krishna is watching you and he's appreciating your sincerity and struggling through it. So just by being there and just by struggling through it, you will be defeated, right?
Yes, yes,
By
Mataji.
not giving up your spiritual life, crying out to Krishna, for help, but not giving up. Okay.
Yes, Mataji.
Right.
And secondly, how should I do like the activities should I do with this 2.5, because now he's active and
Well, at this age, they learn by imitation.
okay.
Right. So whatever you're doing, they're going to imitate. You're cooking, they're going to cook. Right. So if you're cooking and you need to engage them, then give them a little dough ball, wheat ball, and put them in the corner there, and they're rolling their own chapatis. And then you ski. One thing about keeping them engaged in this and helping them grow is by always talking to them.
Okay.
Not being quiet. At every moment you're talking to them and saying, hey, I cook for Krishna, this is the chapati dough, did you offer that to Krishna? Keep reminding them, keep talking to them. Okay. Through the practice of talking and through the practice of listening, they will develop a lot of Krishna consciousness.
Yes.
Okay? So let them do whatever you're doing. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Priya Mataji, for that question. Very thoughtful question. So that brings us to the end of the discussion today. There are no more questions. Any closing comments, Mataji, or?
Well, I'm really thankful for today's program, because I feel it may be the start of something wonderful. I was telling Param Karuna Prabhu also the same thing a few days ago, that I'm hoping that this will be the beginning of something wonderful that is going to come up in terms of uniting together as a family, as a greater family, to help our children grow in Krishna consciousness through the strength of Srila Prabhupada's books and his instructions. Okay.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you for being an inspiration for so many families around the world. And we would like you to keep coming. We will have another session soon. We will announce on the WhatsApp where we will take more questions. We will share our journey as well. And we request you, Mataji, to join us as much as you can. I know there are a lot of demands on your time. I will coordinate with you to see when and how you can make yourself available for sharing your wisdom and your guidance with all of us. In the meantime, we will continue our discussions on Zoom, and we will announce that on the WhatsApp group. Please join the WhatsApp group if you have not joined. And also please try to fill out the form so that we can understand the audience a little bit better. And one more thing, what I wanted, this recording, we will share it. I didn't, as the recording was happening, I didn't see anything that was too personal or too private. So we'll go ahead and share it on the YouTube, on the channel. We'll share the link on the WhatsApp as well. So those who have missed can also watch it. And please share this with your devotee friends. As you can see, this group is meant for devotional Krishna conscious homeschooling. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining. And we hope to get all of your association again. So thank you, Mataji. Special thanks.
Prabhu, I want to just say something. I apologize, but I just want to thank Param Karuna Prabhu and his good wife, Damodar Leela, because he is, due to his sincerity, this is what we had the opportunity of associating with each other. And He's really an exemplary, both of them are exemplary parents who've raised wonderful children, two wonderful children. I've personally known them for a long time. And I just want to thank you, Prabhu, for being the inspiration and making this effort.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Right.
In very large part, it comes from you. And as you said, of course, everything is coming from Srila Prabhupada.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna.
everyone. Thank you.
Hare
Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.